What's up, Starcraft fans? Today we're doing the tier list for Attrition Warfare on Hammerland. Brian, let's hear the mutation.
Void Thrashing is the map where we have to destroy 10 Void Thrashers before they destroy Sergeant Hammer's completely useless fortress. Each set we destroy reveals the next, unless we take too long and they spawn anyway. Widow mines and spider mines are all over the field. They deal 250 splash damage. Both can be shot down. Damage you deal is spread out over an area, including to your own guys.
We have Edmund and Joni in the call with us today. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Doing well.
Thank you.
Alright, so Joni, how do we rank the commanders this week?
Two mutators, I should say. One of which is Diffusion's an interesting one. It's sort of not necessarily like a damage check per se, but it's a survivability slash almost a micro check, really, in that regard. How intelligently can you move your units, like formulate your army in order that you can deal with diffusion as best as possible. Minesweeper very simply is effectively a detection check. So if you have ready access to detection, then you're going to be laughing. Similarly, if you are reliant heavily on melee units, you're probably going to struggle with it more. So I've very much looked at it in those terms this week.
Alright, how about you, Edmund?
Yeah, it's largely, do you have more range than a fifth grader? And as long as you have that and you can get some detection, then you shouldn't have too much trouble. Everyone will obviously struggle a little bit more against certain enemy compositions like Zerg with Zerglings, and that's about it. But largely, that is the main check. Can you outrange the mines and the diffusion?
I was pretty one-dimensional as a fifth grader, so it's probably not hard to outrange fifth grader me, if that's what you meant. But anyway, let's begin. Abathur, where do we have him?
Abathur is all right. He is going to have a little bit more of a tough time with his initial biomass farming because of both mutators, really. You're probably not going to be able to get out a very quick Brutalisk, and because of that, you're going to be a pretty slow starter. Once you can get up some detection and some Ravagers and things like that to kind of deal with the mines, you'll contribute a little bit, but it's certainly not the Abathur you'd hope to see. I had him in B tier.
B tier. What do you think, Joni?
Yes, very similar thoughts. A slightly slower start than normal, which doesn't benefit him. Having said that, once you've got, like, personally for me, swarm hosts up and online, free units, swamp the map, etc., then he does play pretty normally and without really too many dramas whatsoever. I actually had him in A tier. I was a little bit more optimistic purely because I didn't think that a slightly slower start on this map, I didn't feel really had too much of a negative impact on him. Having said that, sort of very happy with B tier as well, looking at who I've got in that also.
Okay. If you're happy with B tier, then I'm also okay with B tier. So that's where he will go. Prestige-wise, third one? Or sorry, second one?
Oh, yes, third one. Definitely. Everyone go third one. Let me know how that goes. I would go second or zero. Probably
Alright.
really realistically, zero. It's a short map, so it's going to take a long time to get out a lot of swarm hosts.
How do you push into the last base, the central base, up that ramp?
Swarm hosts.
Is
The
that
swarm
enough?
hosts really, like chunking it away over time. This is such a short map that realistically you should have buckets of time by the time you get to that final area. That if you, I mean, you can, in the truest sense of what the swarm host is designed to do, you can truly just lay siege to it.
Alright, if that's what you said, then we'll have it. B tier it is. Prestige-wise, second one. Alarak, where do we have him?
Alarak has a similar problem. His detection is a bit of a nuisance in the sense that it is largely havocs. So, bit of a pain to get out. Potentially an argument to make in the early game, I think, for a bit of like turret creeping so that you can push out at least into that sort of initial central area. He also has the downside that being the classic glass cannon, yes, a lot of his units have got great range, the mothership's not going to help matters in the sense that she will continue firing even when stuff is underneath her. So managing diffusion in that sense with Alarak is not the easiest. With all of that being said, he does have some brilliant long-ranged options, Wrathwalkers being the obvious one. He's not going to have a tough time, I don't think, this week. He's got plenty of options in terms of his unit composition, but I don't think that he's going to have quite as straightforward of a time of it as some commanders. I had him in C tier.
C tier. What do you think, Eppenholm?
Yeah, I think for sure the diffusion with the mothership is a little bit concerning, and obviously you have the concern of Alarak eating your whole army like you always do. I think the Wrathwalkers, Ascendants, things like that will actually do pretty well though, and as long as you're careful with your knockback waves and you're kind of on top of keeping things at arm's length with Alarak, I think you'll have a fine time. I also don't think he's the best, but I had him in B tier as well, actually.
Okay. What do you think about B tier, Joni?
I don't mind it at all, really. I do, however, think that Alarak. Sorry, I'm just looking at who else I've got in C tier. Sorry, looking at who else I've got in B tier and just thinking I don't think Alarak's going to have as easy of a time. My concern with Alarak is that there is, as is often the case with him, not a huge amount of margin for error. And I think diffusion exacerbates that this week. I would rather go C tier. I think if he's going to go in B tier, he's going to be near the bottom of it. Let's say that.
What do you think about C tier, Eppenholm?
I think that's fine. You do have the problem of Havocs being your detection and them, even though they're cloaked, having a death wish most of the time. So I think that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, then C tier is where you go. I guess we can reevaluate later on once we have the full list, but I guess C is not bad. C is mid. Tier, or rather, prestige-wise, why not the first one? If we're going Wrathwalkers, why not the first one? If the mothership is a detriment to your hopes, why not the first one?
Yeah, you certainly could. You could. I think that would be fine, honestly. You could go 1 or 3, I think.
1 or 3. Okay, fair.
2.
All right, moving on to someone that's probably not C tier, Arcturus. Where do we have him?
Well, Arcturus has the benefit of being probably the best commander this week, at least very close to it. You just clear the middle, build Earth Splitters in the middle, and the game's over. So it's basically a completely free game for you there. So I don't think I need to go much more in depth than that. I had him in S tier.
What do you think, Joni?
I think the same thing. He has the double advantage of ESOs, obviously. He also has his bunkers. Classically on this map, the ability for him to just bunker up in the center and then not do anything else does make life quite easy. Notably, and for him and for notably Reyna on top, diffusion damage doesn't damage units inside the bunkers, it just damages the bunkers. So there is a sort of single route to repair there, which mitigates diffusion better than some commanders would. So yeah, very, very strong indeed, S tier.
All right, but if we have Arcturus in S tier, let's put Arcturus in S tier. Prestige-wise, first one or third one still okay?
I think either or. I'd be inclined to play the third one purely because then you can use nuclear bombardment as well. But I'd dealer's choice on it, I guess.
Yeah. Another thing you can do as Arcturus is you don't even need to take the central area technically. You can just camp at you can just Earth Splitters at the ramp and then at each expansion. That'll work. But obviously, cleaning the center area will result in less moving and less rebuilding of things. So that's totally fair. S tier it is. First or third prestige. Moving on. Artanis, where do we have him?
Artanis is better this week than he might appear on paper because he can basically cheese this. So the sort of combination of Observers and Tempests does a remarkably decent job on this map. I think that if you throw in some Space Archons for fun, as and when you need them, combined with a bit of solar bombardment to take out errant void thrashers as and when, you can deal with this map shockingly easily. I didn't feel it was so easy that it was completely free, and there are elements of detection knocking around that, try as you may, your observer pathing has got to be pretty good to deal with the addition of Minesweeper on top. Shouldn't really be anything if you're cautious enough, which isn't dealable with pretty easily. I had him in A tier.
What do you think about A tier, Ebenham?
Yeah, I think that A tier is pretty reasonable. That's where I had him as well. Tempests do pretty well. The main issue is just keeping your base safe, but I don't think you're going to have too many problems with that. Just, keep in mind that that's something you're doing as well, and you'll be fine.
All right, A tier it is. That's a pretty good week for Artanis this week. Prestige-wise, what do you think?
AP3,
Probably,
just in case, safety
yeah.
net, but
The Archons are nice. You could go P0 as well for the, oh crap, I walked my Tempest over a set of Widow Mines back up as well. So I think either one has some decent benefits.
How about the second one? So you can just teleport your Tempest from the second set of Thrashers instantly to the third set.
Yeah, I think that would be fine
It's viable,
as well.
right? Yeah.
It's viable. It's one of those things where I feel like that's less beneficial than the other
It's
two
true.
upsides, but it's fine. I think it's the worst of the three options, but it's definitely still a completely reasonable option, I think.
So I would disagree with that actually to a certain extent. I don't think it's a very good idea at all, because if you are doing that, you're not going to be putting the Tempests over like the unpathable terrain. And actually, you specifically are using them this week to avoid having to deal with Minesweeper to a large extent. So I would suggest that teleporting them where you can put his warp zone may end up teleporting them directly onto like a clump of mines that you haven't pre-dealt with. So I would sort of avoid the temptation to do that and just keep them flying around normally.
You can totally teleport them over dead space, can't you?
I don't think you can. You can't put the. It's got to be where you can put the warp zone, no?
I don't think I've ever had a problem with putting a warp zone. I'll have to test this, but I don't think I've ever had that problem putting the warp zone over.
What I'd say is, even if you have to, you could just teleport them into your natural or your ally's natural, and then the speed boost they get, because I assume you have the warp speed boost.
The speed boost is what I'm thinking of.
You'll get to the set pretty much instantly from the natural next to the third set, anyways. But again, I think it's probably the worst of the options, but you could do it.
I should be more open-minded about these things. Yeah, play that Prestige.
Another benefit of the third Prestige is you can actually expand quickly. Because of Diffusion, using Zealots or Pros to expand will destroy those expanding units. So that's another benefit. So when you're weighing your options, you want to use the third Prestige for faster expand and reliable expand. Anyway, still A tier, so not bad. Moving on, Dehaka, where do we have him?
Dehaka is pretty strong this week. I don't think he's quite S tier, but he is going to be able to mostly brute force his way through things. And then once he gets up to his creeper hosts, they can just sort of dive. You will have some diffusion things happening there, but you should be able to punch through easily enough. You're not going to be able to do much in the early game with Dehaka, which is a bit of a pain, but as long as you survive that, I think you'll be okay. For that reason, though, I did not have him in S tier. I just put him in A.
What do you think about A tier, Jody?
I think exactly the same thing. I kind of don't have anything more to add, really. It's going to be slower getting Dehaka up. Getting detection with him is going to be a nuisance, or more of a nuisance than normal. And still, he's great. Pack leaders are excellent.
He's great.
Will soak. He's just a very, very strong commander that pack leaders will allow you to get away with a plethora of sins, but it's going to be more of a nuisance than normal. So I had him in A tier as well.
All right, A tier. Prestige-wise, second one? Yeah, probably,
I
right?
would say so, yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah, I don't see any reason to play a different Prestige.
Not a third week, 2 Dehakas sitting in your base doing nothing for the first half of the game.
Slapping rocks. Moving on.
Yeah, slapping rocks.
Yeah.
Oh, they probably die to that anyway.
They would die faster because there's double the slap, double the diffusion. Oh my Donnie. Fenix, where do we have him?
Fenix isn't great this week because a significant amount of his damage output relies on melee units, namely Caldalis. So he does have some solutions to things. Warbringer is really great for clearing mines, as is the Dragoon suit to a certain extent. Obviously, going to want to be microing observers pretty carefully, but it does mean that the typical sort of head-on, just face tanking everything approach that Fenix P2 players may be inclined to take isn't as effective and can be pretty laborious this week, actually. That was kind of the extent of my thoughts with him, really. I don't think it's by any stretch of the imagination impossible, but you're going to have the consistent pain of just going back and forwards from your shell farm, restocking sort of on Caldalis shells, etc., and really causing a bit of a pain, if I'm being completely honest. I didn't rate him very highly this week. I had him in D tier.
D tier. What do you think, Edwin?
Yeah, it's a little tough when most weeks talking about Fenix, it starts off with, well, Caldalis is going to be most of your heavy lifting. And then this week it's like, well, Caldalis is going to kill himself instantly every time he comes out. So your main strength as Fenix is kind of ruined this week. I think, yeah, he's just not great. You do have the Arbiter suit for detection as well as the Observers, which is okay. Like clearing the mine shouldn't be too much of a pain. It's sort of just everything else. And beyond that, yeah, I don't know. I had him in D tier as well. I don't think it's going to be too fun.
All right, unanimous D tier for Fenix, which isn't too far from where he was last time. So yeah, pretty good. Not bad. And Kerrigan made him look competent this week. Although that being said, well, we'll get into that later. But Kerrigan did make him look competent this week. Moving on, Han and Horner. Where do we have them?
Han and Horner has the benefit of strike platforms being decent against the setup we've got going on here. They're good at clearing the mines and whatnot, and they're okay against the Void Thrashers. Beyond that, a lot of their army is relatively close range. I think you probably want to go for like an air composition, try to just kind of dodge around the enemy units, maybe with like Mass Wraith or something like that, and deal with the Void Thrashers directly while just kind of ignoring as much of the enemy comp as you can. That said, it's Han and Horner, so I was not terribly optimistic, but I don't think they're horrible or anything, so I had them in C tier.
Hey, that's not D or below. What do you think, Joni?
I didn't have them in D or below either. Actually, I was even perkier in my opinion of them. I had them in B tier.
B tier
for all of similar reasons. Really, I was probably slightly more optimistic about their ability to snipe Void Thrashers without sort of having to venture really too adventurously. But I'm also very happy with C tier.
All right.
So yeah, B, C, happy with that.
All right. If you're happy with C tier, that's where he will land, or they will land, I guess. So Han and Horner, which is not a bad place, by the way. It's mediocre. So C tier for Han and Horner. Prestige wise, first one. You don't want the third one here, right? The second
Not
one,
third, I wouldn't say. It's a very short map.
The second one is interesting because you can totally use battlecruisers with the Yamato thing and just have a sieged up Raven. It becomes less fun when the enemy's Zerg and the last bay has 4 Vipers. Not fun. Anyway, let's move on. Karax, where do we have him?
Karax is fun this week. If by fun you mean easy. So really, one observer plus some backups is pretty much all you need. Play P3, snipe Void Thrashers with your top bar, and that is pretty much all she wrote. I kind of don't feel the requirement to go into more detail, so I'll pass it over to ET, but I had him in S tier.
What do you think, Edwin Home?
Well, if he's not going to go into more detail, I won't either. So yeah, I think he's quite good. I also had him in S tier. The only thing that needs to leave your base is observers. So
S tier. So just put static defense in your basic guess. You can get observers and do.
No,
soul
we're not
lancing.
going into detail. No detail. Stop.
Fine. Put him in S tier. My Donnie. Moving on. It's not my tier list. I don't make the rules. Moving on. No prestige. We're not even gonna do prestigious because who cares about that anyway. Moving on. Kerrigan. Where do we have him?
Kerrigan's a little interesting. Kerrigan herself, I think you're probably going P3 to deal with the mines and things effectively with crushing grip and whatnot. And you do have good detection in the form of Omega Worms, and they also even do pretty well for tanking. The rest of your units aren't exactly going to be great necessarily. You're probably going Mass Hydralisk with some lurkers underneath, and you'll do all right. I wasn't quite sure if she would be A or B tier. I had her in B, but I could certainly see A tier.
All right. What do you think, Joni? B or A?
Yeah, I had her on the same equation, but on the other side of it, I had her in A tier. But
A tier.
Utilizing very, very similar strategies. I'm a big fan of playing Broodlords on this map. I think they work really well, and I think particularly with this mutator set, I think they work really well as well. Very, very similar strategy to, I mean, really any siege unit, but particularly sort of Artanis's Tempests. I think you can get away equating her Broodlords to them. So yes, I felt her ability to push, detect, and then actually sort of prosecute on the Void Thrashers was pretty strong here, actually. So hence why I had her in A tier.
Okay, not bad at all. I actually was wondering whether you two would mention it, but yes, you can totally go for the Omega route, but at 10 minutes, Kerrigan gets this nice, fancy little thing called Immobilization Wave, which, when powered up, does just delete every single mine in a 30 distance rate, in a 30 radius wide circle. So just probably 2 or 3 immobilization waves is enough to clear the entire map of mines, unless they are very close to like thrashers and stuff that will just diffuse the damage in a weird manner that will leave some mines alive, but most of them should be gone, right? Right?
Oh yeah, I mean this map is basically perfectly set up for any like large area spell effect like immobilization wage or big red button or anything like that. It's depending on how quickly you're clearing, either 3 of the areas or 2 of the areas absolutely will fall prone to that and will be cleared very, very effectively by it.
Yeah, but anyway, that's also A tier because it's not S tier. Well, yeah, very, very sound reasoning. It's not A tier because it's A tier because it's not S tier. Very sound logic. So that's what we'll do. A tier for Kerrigan. What prestige are we going for?
I agree with ET. I think 3 is best for mine clearance, etc. this week.
All right, that's where she will go. 3rd prestige. Moving on, Nova. Where do we have him?
Nova P3 is very, very good because she detects and then deals with and then moves on with mines, with Void Thrashers, with basically anything you care to sort of bring to bear. Her Liberators have excellent range, and so Diffusion's not too much of a drama for you as long as you've cleared the appropriate pathways for them. Being air units, they can use all of the appropriate pathing, etc. So very, very strong indeed. Playing P3 for my money. I'd put her in S tier.
What do you think, Edpenholm?
Yeah, extremely strong this week. You clear with Nova on P3 and then just move in with some Liberators and they'll annihilate the Thrashers, and you have pretty good defense as well. So it's very easy week for her. S tier.
All right, unanimous S tier. That's where she will end up being. 3rd prestige. And do you go for the nuke at Holo Decoy cooldown mastery instead of Griffin airstrike cost?
I probably would.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't think you need to, in the sense that it's kind of going to depend on your play style, I think. do you want to clear quicker, or do you want to have a bit of a safety net against the incoming enemy waves? But dealer's choice. I think you'll get away with either.
Yeah, I think if I were to play Nova, I would use the Nuke Mastery because I can just use my regular units and probably a single defensive drone to deal with whatever it is. They're not stronger. They just have diffusion, which makes it annoying, but they're not stronger. So I can probably deal with it just fine. If it's Zerg, the most dangerous thing is Zerglings, but I can just use the defensive drone to keep my guys alive. And yeah, with the Nuke Mastery, my cooldown, correct me if I'm wrong, the cooldown for the Nuke with the Nuke Mastery is 2 minutes 40 seconds. So once you get the first one,
2.5, 240, yeah.
You'll be able to use it on the second set of Thrashers before they spawn. You'll be able to use it at the third set of Thrashers right about 11 or 12 minutes. Again, before they spawn. And then you'll be able to use it again at the 15 minute mark at the last base, again, before the Thrashers spawn. So I think it's a no-brainer to just go for the Nuke Mastery. And just let your units, plus a defensive drone or two, handle what's left. Plus, if you're going for heavy Liberators and Ravens, you'll probably have a lot of minerals left anyway for Airstrike, even if they do cost 1,000, so I think it's a no-brainer. Anyway, moving on, S tier for Nova. How about Raynor? Where do we have him?
Well, not S tier. He has
Double
bunkers.
S tier.
Yes, double S. He has bunkers, and they're solid, but they're not as good as Arcturus bunkers. You can't drop them from space whenever you need one. And the stuff that goes inside them generally aren't as good as Arcturus's bunkers, and the stuff behind them really isn't as good because he does not have Earth Splitters. So a little unfortunate there for Raynor this week. I don't think he's horrible. You can defend pretty well with the bunkers. You can, I guess, just go like mass BC or something like that.
Ooh.
I say he's not horrible, but I really am not a fan. I don't think he's going to be terribly great this week. I had him in D tier.
D tier for Raynor. What do you think, Joni?
Oh, so a bit of controversy there then, because I had him in B tier actually. I was looking at using this sort of tried and tested Viking and then bunkering up at home strategy on this, and just sending out a Viking hit squad to deal with Void Thrashers. Yes, they're going to be slowed down to a certain extent by Minesweeper. At the same time, using top bars to deal with that with liberal use of scans, pretty achievable in relatively short order, given that the Vikings will path pretty economically over the terrain that is going to have mines on it. And then, like ET said, basically bunkering up at home. Yes, they're not amazing, but at the same time, they're perfectly decent enough to be able to deal with whatever gets thrown their way. So I had him in B tier. I don't think he was sort of tragic. I don't think he's going to have as hard a time as Fenix or anyone else that I had in D tier. But I can totally see why he would not necessarily be much higher. So maybe C tier. I don't think he's D tier. Let's see.
What do you think, Edwin?
I had him in C tier, and I talked to myself out of it while I was speaking, so I guess I'm fine with C tier.
I guess we're all fine with C tier. Hey, Raynor gets a little bit of reprieve this week, not D tier. So, for the first time in a long time, what prestige for Raynor?
I think P3.
Yeah, if you're going to go the Viking route, definitely P3. Just, be careful. Don't get hit by a mine.
All right, C tier for Raynor, third prestige. Moving on to someone that's probably not C tier. Stetboy, where do we have him?
Not in C tier.
D tier.
Sort of trying to speak economically, but at the same time actually make the video long enough that it'd be worthwhile people watching. But no, I mean Stetmann P2. There is very little to be said other than he deals with everything extremely respectably. When you put in a covering wave of Lings in addition to him in order to keep particularly other ground units like other Lings off Super Gary, then you're kind of on a recipe for success. In addition to that, I would potentially advocate for using his Ultralisks this week with their own sort of diffusion style trickery. they will deal with that pretty well, and they're tanky. Yeah, just a bit of magic thrown in there. They just deal with everything really well. So I had Stetmann in a relatively easy S tier.
What do you think about S tier, Edmund Home?
Yeah, I think Stetmann's really good. You have all kinds of different options, whatever you really want to go with. You could go infestors realistically on this map, and who cares if they get hit by mines and spider mines and diffusion, because there's just the infestors you care about, but the roaches and ravagers they produce, you can just produce an infinite amount, and then also have zerglings that can't die to the spider mines and widow mines really. So it's a very easy S tier week for Stetmann.
All right. Second prestige.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
There we go. Moving on. Stukov, where do we have him?
Stukov is also pretty good this week. I didn't quite put him in S tier because he does have a slower ramp up, and your infested can take a long time to kill stuff when there's diffusion going on, but eventually you'll kill everything. And you could even maybe go P1 and kill things a little bit quicker potentially, but who wants to do that when you could build bunkers and click once every couple minutes? So I think he's A tier.
You guys click?
Yes, very rarely. Yeah, I'd say A tier for Stukov.
What do you think about A tier, Joni?
So I am one of those peculiar perverts who wanted to go P1 and try and clear things a little bit quicker.
This is a family-friendly channel. My Donnie.
Disgusting.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
Can we get someone else in here? Yeah, I'm not comfortable anymore.
My eternal shame. So I like it. I think his tanks are really good. And I famously don't like playing P3. With that being said, P3 will get the job done eventually. I just sort of couldn't be bothered to inflict the misery on myself of just watching infested dying in hordes. So P1, from my perspective, very, very viable. I had him in B tier, but that's probably because of my sort of leaning on P1. So I'm very happy to have him in A tier on the basis that I suspect P3 is possibly I won't say any more viable, but I suspect in the long term it's probably a safer option.
All right, we'll do that then. A tier for Stukov and probably third prestige. Moving on, Swann. Where do we have him?
I didn't really like Swann this week because he lacks.
Doesn't like you either.
No, well, he's correct. He's correct. I'm a dreadful individual, but I do normally quite enjoy playing Swann. E0 being my preference, but this week I found it to be pretty laborious, if I'm being completely honest. His reliance on science vessels for detection makes it very, very dull indeed. There is the option to go P1 and float factories over dead ground, etc., etc. You are going to have still a pretty torrid time of it if you do that, because at some point those factories are going to have to emerge onto bases and start clearing them. And with diffusion in play, there is very, very limited margin for error on that. I've rated him really low, and I kind of wonder whether I've over-egged the pudding a bit in terms of how miserable of a time it was. I'm going to put him in C tier because I don't think he's as desperate as I've made out, but I did find not too many redeeming features to playing Swann this week.
What do you think about C tier at Benhelm?
Well, I had him in B tier because I figured that the P1 flying factory strategy, well, it's not a strategy I really ever employ or enjoy. I know it's quite good, and I feel like you're basically bypassing Minesweeper by doing it. And not basically, you literally are bypassing Minesweeper by doing
flying over.
So all you have to do is deal with diffusion, and you can make a lot of factories over the course of the game. So you don't care if you lose some to diffusion, I don't think, would be my thought. So I had him in B tier. I really don't think he's as bad as Raynor, for example. Sorry, Raynor. I think he's more on level with like an Abathur or something like that. Like, assuming you make literally nothing except factories and SCVs, I feel like you could probably win the game, and you could make other stuff if you wanted to. Turrets at home, obviously, probably. But yeah, I think I think he's probably B tier.
What do you think about B tier, Johnny?
I'm not unhappy with that. I suspect that my slightly grumpy tiering of him this week was mainly due to a sort of tax on the amount of my time it wasted by just trying to gently melt stuff down with the laser drill, but very, very viable. You can turret up at home and you're safe, aren't you? So I'm happy with B tier, that's fine.
All right, B tier it is for Swann. Prestige-wise, first one. Moving on, Tychus. Where do we have him?
Tychus is solid. You obviously want to get out Sirius for his turrets because otherwise you're going to not really have good detection, and then you'll probably want to get out Nux or Vega after that for some more detection. Or not. I mean, you really only need one detector for clearing, and then the others can defend. So you'll have defense on lock, you'll have offense relatively on lock. You have a giant nuke on lock as well, I suppose. So I had him pretty high up. I had him in S tier.
S tier. What do you think about S tier, Joni?
Oh, I didn't have him in S tier. And as someone who plays P2 Tychus a lot, that's unusual. I felt that due to Tychus himself sort of lacking a bit of punch, I actually was inclined to play P1 or P3 this week. Probably P1 purely because, as previously mentioned, Big Red Button is extremely useful on this map. I enjoyed the combination of using Tychus in conjunction with Nakara to provide detection, so you're basically up and running right from the off. You've got some healing, you can manage your little bundle of outlaws and sort of rattle them around the map as a little mine clearing / multi-purpose task force. At the same time, P2, it's always strong. It's always really viable. Yes, you've got loads of decent detection options and you're going to be getting Sirius out straight away anyhow. So I can completely see it. I had him in A tier, not S tier. I am not convinced that he is as free as any of the other commanders in A tier, although I could possibly be swayed by a compelling argument. But I suspect I'd be more inclined to lump him alongside a Dehaka this week.
Interesting. What do you think about... Do you have a final pitch for S tier, Eponome? If you were to ask me to pitch it, I would just say you should try soloing this map with just Sirius. It totally works.
Yeah. I feel like S tier probably is still my pick, but I totally get A tier, especially I'd say like if you're against Protoss or Terran, I think it's definitely S tier. And against Zerg, yeah, it could be A tier. So for that reason, I'm fine with A tier. I think you're probably still really strong either way, but I could definitely see if you're up against Zerg,
Totally fair.
it'd be a little bit tougher as things get around Tychus or Sirius or whatever. But if it's the other two, I'd say it's definitely S. So as long as you are cheating, you can pick your comp, then S tier.
That's fair. All right, both of you.
Excellent.
Both of you are okay with A tier? Let's put Tychus in A tier. So we're doing first prestige, not second prestige.
I think you could do either.
All right.
I think it's pretty viable either way.
So I'm starting to think that you won't end up with 12 commanders in S tier. Not that it's relevant to anything. Moving on. Vorazun, where do we have him?
Not in S tier, or A tier, or B tier, or I won't do the whole alphabet.
W tier.
Yeah. Vorazun's not very good this week. Primarily because there's lots and lots of reasons. Her detection will run away from you. I mean, F2ing just and die. Yeah, F2ing in general terms is simply not viable this week. You do need to control very, very tightly to keep stuff alive. Yes, DTs do have her
Shadow Fury.
Oh, Shadow Fury, thank you. Yes, Shadow Fury does give them the iframes, but at the same time, it does have a long cooldown as well, so it's not massively viable for clearing in any way, shape, or form over a sort of prolonged period of time or even very quickly. Her primary damage dealing unit is a melee unit. Do I need to give any more reasons why she's not very good? Her air is shocking as always. I suspect there is an argument to be made for basically playing Mass Void Ray this week.
Which I
actually,
did.
as I'm.
And I don't recommend
Yeah,
it.
I mean,
Terrible.
no, I was sort of trying to theory craft ways that you could make it a slightly less painful experience, and I suspect that may be it. But that speaks more to how painful it is if you don't do that than how it will make it any better for you. I really don't see her having a fun time at all this week. I suspect that. I mean, you're going to be playing P3 anyway, and I suspect that just clearing with time stop and DTs is going to be the way forwards. At the same time, they're still going to die because of diffusion. So, goodness knows, up to ET this week in terms of really where to put it. I had her in E tier only because I couldn't think of a way that she could actively be a detriment to her ally. But that's the only reason I didn't have her in F tier. She is shocking this week.
I'm not shocked, but let's go ahead. Edwin Home, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a rough week for Vorazun. You basically have Shadow Fury, and that's it. And that's not good enough. So I had her in E tier. Yeah, it's not great.
All right. Vorazun, E tier. Not great. What buff would you give Vorazun so that she's not E tier?
Let's see. Better detection. Void Rays are
That's a good one.
cloaked.
Give Void Rays even more
upgraded range.
Yeah, give Void Rays Tempest
the Void Rays
range.
start with their max range instead of having to power up to it, something like that.
Yeah.
Give Void Rays 30 range so they can sit in your base like ESOs.
Hold the phone! That's an idea. Void Splitters. Oh my god, that's a
got done.
Or Void Launchers.
So, yeah, something like that.
Wait, Void Launchers, that's a map.
Give her a top bar that's Tassadar's ship crashing into the Overmind, but you can just put it anywhere on the map and just kills everything. Something like that. I don't know. She's just sort of fundamentally flawed with the way she's built.
Make time stop permanent.
Yeah.
On a 20-minute cooldown, but if you survive that long, then you can just win. It's fine.
Yeah, that'll totally work.
She'd still lose because the DTs would all die for diffusion while killing the Void Thrashers, so.
How about a shorter cooldown for Shadow Fury? Maybe the attack upgrades from the Forge can shorten the cooldown. Maybe that'll work.
That should be like a prestige similar to like P3 Zeratul,
Something like that.
That'd be cool.
Each armor or each attack upgrade from the Forge should decrease her cooldown on the Shadow Fury. In exchange...
That can replace Withering Siphon,
Yeah, anything could replace that second prestige. My god. Anyway. Trade-off, I guess... How would it trade that off? No detection? No cannons?
Yeah, no oracles. Your life is no different than it was before. I think you maybe you can't use Shadow Guard anymore, something like that. I don't know.
Maybe something like that. All right.
That would be interesting. Yeah.
That would push Vorazun all the way up to D tier. An improvement.
Hey.
Moving on.
Doing our best over here.
Moving on. No prestige recommendation because E tier is considered bad. Zagara, where do we have him?
Zagara is another one that is extremely reliant on melee units in general. My theory was maybe you go Mass Corruptor with P2, but then you got to be careful about mines and how do you clear those without being able to get any other units there. But maybe you just sacrifice a couple Corruptors to the mine gods and go in and focus down the Thrashers. Something like that. Maybe there's a P3 play with Zagara and Hunter Killers, but that's going to be a little bit tough as well. Obviously, Banelings don't care too much about diffusion, but they do still somewhat because the front one explodes and then diffuses onto all the Banelings behind it. So there is that issue. So I think, she's pretty bad. I had her in E tier as well, actually. I could see D tier more so with her than with Vorazun, but I think they're both pretty rough.
What do you think, Joni?
Yes, I couldn't see D tier. I had her firmly in E tier as well for all of the aforementioned reasons. The Baneling problem I think is a really significant problem to the extent that it means that P1 is obviously not viable, but it makes it even less viable. I kind of figured that P3 with Zagara's ability to deep tunnel combined with Corruptors, so sort of a slight hybrid of the tactics ET was using, is quite possibly certainly the best solution I came up to with this one. But yeah, I felt that was going to be the way. But yes, E tier for me. She's not great.
E tier. How do you make Zagara not E tier this week? How to improve her?
Give Corruptors a bio launcher attack.
Hey!
So they can kill the mines on the ground, and then you'll be fine, right? So something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, actually,
mobile bio launchers. Yeah,
mobile launchers. Hey, make bio launchers uprootable. That would make her B tier possibly, because it's still not easy.
Yeah.
You still have to spread creep.
Bio launchers.
Yeah, mobile bio launchers.
That would be funny,
that would be serviceable. not even serviceable, but yeah, that's actually we should have mobile launchers. That should be.
I mean, that would be just mobile ESOs. It's ridiculous.
No, but, it has to be B tier because B tier stands for bio launchers mentioned.
That's true. It
has to be. It has to be. And C tier stands for cyclones. Oh my Donnie. Moving on. Zeratul. Where do we have him?
Zeratul's very good. He's got cannons which kill stuff and detect at the same time. You do have to get them down, but they're great. Cannons are great. Personally, I think if you're going cannons, I suspect playing P2 is going to be the way forwards, despite the fact it's quite a short map. I would also suspect that as much as playing P3 might seem like a good idea at first, it's probably not. And that's kind of my thoughts on him. I think S tier cannon's good.
S tier cannon's good. What do you think, Eppenholm?
I was not as optimistic, as Johnny likes to say, about Zeratul. I think the problem is Zeratul himself isn't going to be able to do a ton because of diffusion. And the transition between Zeratul and everything else is one that takes time. So I don't think he's nearly as good as the folks we do have in S tier. I think he's still not bad. If you can get out cannons or an army or whatever you're going for, that's fine. But the early game is going to be a little bit annoying. Diffusion will be annoying if you have an army as well. If you're up against Zerglings or something like that, it's going to kind of suck. So you
just suck.
Probably want to go cannons. But then you're having to, I don't know. I think he's good. I think he's A tier. I don't think he's quite S tier.
Do you have one more pitch for S tier, Joni? Or are you willing to accept A tier?
I need to think about that. So my thought process here is basically the parallel between Arcturus and Zeratul here. For me, that's once you've secured that middle island, the sort of the game is won in terms of with Zeratul, you have got enough in-game time that you've started building stuff up, i.e. cannons. So for me, does Zeratul have a harder time taking that middle island than Arcturus, really? And I think actually on balance with diffusion, yes, he does, basically. So yeah, I'm happy to have Zeratul in A tier.
Okay. Well, I don't see how the middle island is important to Zeratul because the cannons can project from his main base, but the main difference is even if you have a billion cannons, the difference is enemies can shoot down Zeratul's cannons. They can't even react to Earth Splitters. That's the main difference in my mind.
So sorry, that was a slightly so a private analogy that I should have explained better. I didn't mean that the middle island was important to Zeratul geographically. It was simply the sort of the time.
Oh, the time it takes to secure that your primary weapon.
That's it. You've then, by that point with Zeratul, you've built up that critical enough mass of cannons that you can just start projecting them out onto the map. Plus, obviously, the second artifact piece. So, yes, a slightly bullshit analogy I appreciate, but I'm very happy with him in A tier. It is, as has been pointed out, it's not without more problems than some of the S tier commanders this week. So, yeah, very, very happy with that.
All right, prestige wise, second one.
Yes, I think so.
Yep.
Okay, it turns out we didn't have 12 commanders in S tier. Who would have thunk? Do we have a double S?
Arcturus is very close to being a double S, I'd
Yeah,
say.
that's actually
You
true.
mentioned as well.
If there's
Like,
anyone,
as you mentioned, you don't even technically need to clear and take the middle area. You can clear everything without leaving your naturals. So I'd be down to put him in double S for that reason. You can just ESO and never leave your base.
what do you think, Joni? Double S?
Yeah, I'm not unhappy with that. I'm thinking that for the sake of one observer, Karax is not in a dissimilar position, really.
What do you
That's
think?
true. I think you're slower with Karax,
You're
right?
slower.
Like Karax, ideally, you're going out with cannons and your top bars and killing everything, whereas Arcturus, it's basically the fastest strategy you can do is to just mass ESOs on this map,
Yeah, it is basically free, isn't it? I'm super happy with Arcturus in double S, yeah.
All right. And with the power of movie magic, we officially have a double S Arcturus, who's top of A tier. Or S tier, rather.
I think S tier is good how it is, honestly.
Karax, then Nova, then Stetboy. Who's top of A tier?
Zeratul, I think.
I'd say Zeratul and then possibly Tychus straight after him.
And then Dehaka, probably. And then Kerrigan.
Kerrigan.
Tychus should be second.
Yeah, Tychus in second.
Second?
And actually, yeah, pretty happy with that. I think that looks good.
All
yeah,
right.
That's fine, I think.
Who's top of B?
I think Abathur.
Abathur.
I was going to say, I think it's Swann. Yeah.
But Abathur doesn't have cyclones. How can that be?
It's not as tedious of an experience, though.
Oh, my Donnie. How about C tier? Who's top of C tier?
I think Han and Horner might be better than Alarak. And then I think Alarak's better than Raynor.
All right.
Yes, I'd agree with that.
And then E tier.
And then I think Vorzun is the worst of the worst.
Yes.
Vorzun is really struggling this week.
Vorzun is only not F tier by a technicality. Oh, my Donnie. Okay, we have 8 commanders in B tier or below. Do we have combinations of 2 or more of these guys who, together, would be stronger than Stetboy on his own? Basically build an S tier from B tier and below.
I don't think so, honestly.
No. Stetboy on his own is better than any combination of these two. Alright, that's fair. That is totally fair. Okay, so guys, hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. If you have an idea for it also, please leave it in a comment. I will see you guys next time.